My name is Amy Hendry. I am originally from Christchurch, where I grew up. I studied in Wellington with my architecture degree, and now I live in Auckland. I've been here for seven and a half years. Barcelona. We started in Barcelona. We flew in there. We stayed there for one night just to get some sleep and get into the holiday. And we returned at the end of the trip. We came back for 3 nights, and that was kind of the Barcelona bit, really. The thing that really struck me about Barcelona was how accessible it was. We went, in our travels, we had 3 weeks, we went to a few different cities, mostly down the south, so Seville and Cordoba and Granada. And they just didn't feel as kind of enveloping and welcoming to me as Barcelona. It was actually really fun to come back to Barcelona. I was, sort of, when we got, even though we'd only been there for a night, it felt like we were, I don't know, it felt familiar in a way, which was really nice for the end of the trip to kind of end on that really great note. So, the first thing that struck me about Barcelona was, you come in from the airport on one of their airport buses. So, they leave every 5 minutes pretty much, and they put you in the Plaza Catalunya, which is the main square, and it's pretty much the square around which everything sort of, is orientated, and in particular public transport and tourist operations and things like that. So you can orientate yourself really quickly, and so Plaza Catalunya is at the top of La Rambla. So it's right there. La Rambla goes down to the marina, the coast, the boats and the beach, and that's where we were staying. So that, obviously became sort of the hub of our stay in Barcelona. So for me, being an architect, the physical orientation is very important. I guess it's important for any tourist. You need to feel like you know where you're going. And so with, map in hand from Plaza Catalunya, we just walked down the Rambla, and then our hotel was off one of the side streets. And so that kind of set up the trip. And from there we could, branch out to the different areas of Barcelona and see what we wanted to see. What was special about Barcelona to me was sort of, and I've said that word before, the accessibility of it. The fact that you could sort of stand in one place and know that you could walk or catch a bus, or, in some respects catch the metro to where you wanted to go. And at every step of the way, the city would, would stay around you, really. So one of the things I really noticed was in that centre city, there were shops everywhere. They were along every street, every sidewalk, just everywhere. I'd never seen so many shops and boutiques and before. And there was a huge population, obviously, of tourists and locals to support that. But it meant that it was busy all the time. And so if you were walking to your next destination, you'd just be carried along through the crowds of people, and you wouldn't notice that in fact you just walked 1 kilometre to get to your destination. It actually was, there was so much to see, and so many people around you and so much interest that it actually felt like oh, I've just walked for 15 minutes, and actually that was really great. I've got sore feet. Why is that? Oh God, I've just walked a kilometre, So that was a special thing to me, and it was therefore really vibrant. Lots of people, really vibrant, huge energy about the city, things happening all the time. There were no quiet spots or dead spots. It was just, busyness and vibrancy everywhere. And it was quite unlike any other city I've been to, actually. Maybe London, would come close, but just the amount of people and things going on was just everyday things going on. I don't mean events or anything, just people going about their everyday business and tourists doing all their thing. Yeah, extraordinary. Yeah. Yeah, city infrastructure was pretty impressive. I mean, automatically they've designed the city around that fairly small city centre. I mean, Barcelona is enormous, population-wise, an enormous city. It's huge. But for some reason, it actually felt very small in the middle and very easy to get around. And I think, incredibly dense. As always, in any European city, you've got shops, offices, apartments, all crammed into one space. And so it's very, very dense. Generally we got around by walking and by the buses, so it really depended on what we wanted to do. We'd generally during the day either catch the bus or the metro. When we went to Sagrada Familia we caught the metro because that's where that went. We went to Park Güell to see the Gaudi and that was a bus. Again, it all left from Plaza Catalunya or else, you know, with the metro, a stop near our hotel. Otherwise we walked. Our days were generally spent doing sort of a sightseeing activity during the day, and sort of on the last day we did a bit of shopping, and then at night around about sort of 9 o'clock we'd head out for dinner, and then we walked and we walked and walked, and so, but like I said, being on foot was very, very easy because it's, like I say, so much to see. You knew where we were going, the map was very obvious, and because it's such a sort of densely packed, sort of knitted together city, orientation started to come very easily after only, sort of 2 or 3 days. So it was, yeah, generally by foot mostly. Oh, the food and drink. Food and drink. Well, I mean, for us I went for my husband. For us, it was always going to be a really important part. From the outset, we knew we didn't want a frantic tourist holiday. We wanted a relaxed holiday. We needed a holiday, so we needed to make sure we slowed down. So food and drink obviously was going to be a big part of that. And one of the best things about Spain was, it's everywhere. The food and drink and meals are such a celebrated part of their culture. So yeah, dinner was at 10:30 or 11 at night, and we had dinner at 10:30 or 11 at night, with the locals. So the thing that particularly struck us though about eating and drinking in Spain was, they've got the whole tapas sort of culture going on. So you do that for lunch generally, or you go and have a snack at kind of 6, and we'd often actually do that for dinner as well. Just go and settle in a bar at maybe 8:30, which was a bit early for dinner, but we'd be a bit hungry, so we'd just order sort of one dish at a time and then have our glass of wine with that. The other wonderful thing, and this doesn't really apply to Auckland, but sort of New Zealand as a whole, was the alcohol was actually, it was really inexpensive, but they served it in very small quantities. So you could go along and you could have a little glass of beer. It was called a caña, which literally, this small glass, and it was the size of a tumbler. It was what you had your gin and tonic in. But it was little, so I think you were having 200 mils, and it was about €2, so you were spending, under $4. But it meant we didn't actually drink very much. You'd have these small glasses of wine and small glasses of beer, and just sort of generally, waft your way through the evening with your tapas. And you wouldn't be drunk at the end. You'd actually, you'd feel like you had a lovely night out and your head was still clear. And you hadn't spent a fortune either. You hadn't spent $100 on a meal. I think our most expensive meal in Spain, with the strong dollar obviously, I think it was about €43. So it was under $80. And that was, 2 beers, 2 glasses of wine, enough food that we could eat, all that kind of thing. So yeah, food and wine was a huge part of what we did, and we had some spectacular meals there. Yeah. We made a big effort with our Spanish the whole way, sort of around our trip. Getting back to Barcelona was interesting because all of a sudden people spoke a lot more English. Not many people speak English in Spain, but in Barcelona there are a lot more people able and willing, in fact, to speak English. So generally I found the service to be actually really good. It was interesting though, because the more touristy we got, there was one night where we went into a restaurant. It wasn't in the Lonely Planet, but it must have been in some other guidebook because it was full of non-Spaniards. And it didn't actually matter that night because the food was some of the best we'd had on the holiday. But because it was full of tourists, the waiting staff kind of weren't as into it. Rude tourists trying to, yap at them in English all the time. And that was some of the rudest service we actually got over the whole trip. But the more we got into the local areas, which we made a real effort to do, we wanted to make sure we, experienced the local scene, what the locals did, and so we made a huge effort to go to the local places to eat and to drink. The service was great. They were really relaxed, really friendly. We stammered our way through Spanish, they'd stammer a bit of English back, and we got through, and it was really fun. And so I was very impressed by that. The other thing we did in Barcelona was a lot of shopping. finally did sort of some clothes shopping, and I don't know, I felt like we were sort of treated generally the same as anybody else who walked off the street, as long as, you know, we tried the Spanish and we knew what to ask for, and that was that. It was interesting, I'd read in The Lonely Planet that the Spaniards sort of quite a, what do they use? I can't remember the word they used, but they're not not the warmest of people. But not warm in an overt way. They're very warm people, yeah, but they're not gushy. They're not going to be smiling and laughing with you, as you know, and joking at your table. They just get up and get on with it. Okay. It's not rude. It's just efficient, and that's exactly what I found. They were just kind of efficient about it, and very civil and very nice, and you know. But it was fine. It was fun.
Tell me, did you actually get to meet some locals? Did you go to anybody's house, or did you get that close to any locals?
No, we didn't. No, it was, you know, there's still that tourist barrier, and our Spanish was basic at best. In Barcelona, certainly, probably the best experience we had was in a little town in the south called Vejero de la Frontera, which is about 10 k's from the coast. It's very near Cadiz. And we went there kind of for a little mini break in our holiday, just to do really nothing. We stayed there for 4 nights, and it's a hilltop town. It's the typical, you know, whitewash Spanish stucco, you know, blue details, timber details, you know, gorgeous. And we stayed at a sort of a little apartment. There were 3 in the building, and this woman owned sort of the whole apartment, and originally it would have been rented out to 4 different families, but she had one and she rented the others out as holiday apartments. And she was lovely. She was actually the most open, most open host that we met the whole time. But because we're actually on that slightly more personal level, it wasn't a hotel, it was an apartment. And she was actually opening a bar in the square on the last night we were there, and she invited us to the opening, and you know, really wanted to hear more about us. So that was probably the closest we got to actually meeting, you know, a Spaniard, but her English was fantastic, so we could actually communicate with her. Otherwise, it was, you know, otherwise we did our best to be polite and be friendly, and again, not try and be a tourist. Sorry, that's mine.
Is it? Okay, now.
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
Auckland City could, you know, everybody knows that Auckland City could be a better city, and I'm sorry, God, we'll start that again, shall we? No, we can get rid of it, and I can do it a bit better.
Okay, and just repeat the question.
Yeah.
What could Auckland City learn, you know, from Barcelona? Well,
Auckland City could learn a lot from Barcelona, and no doubt in its treatment of visitors. It's, like I said, the thing that struck me again about Barcelona was how easy it was to get around, how connected it was. The city was so interconnected. One of the things I've noticed about Auckland is that it's really moving that direction. You know, I came here 7 years ago from Wellington, and Wellington, you know, in my then biased opinion, of course, and probably still a bit biased, really, they are great at urban design. They've got a master plan, they're sticking at it, and they're really going for it, and it's a wonderful city to walk around. You know, it's brilliant. And Auckland, by comparison, is quite piecemeal. And there's Ponsonby over there, and there's Parnell over there, and there's downtown here, and, you know, K Road up here. But one of the things I've really noticed that's starting to happen in Auckland is all those in-between bits are starting to be developed. And even the rusty bits, like Fort Street, that was really crummy, that's starting to pick up pace. Britamart's starting to pick up pace. And what that means is, slowly but surely, the city is sort of, you know, densifying, and everywhere's becoming nice. You don't have to scoot through the yucky bits to get to the nice bits. It's actually starting to really, you know, pick up its act. And I think that will in turn lead to what my point is, which is that interconnectedness, so that you can get about in the city, whether it's by foot or, you know, going past on a bus, and feel like you're still in the city, not going from here to over there or here to up there. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Auckland can learn. But that's, you know, that's kind of, that's fairly basic urban design principles, and I know that Auckland's doing a lot to go in that direction. But as a visitor, it's so important, because again, you want to feel like you're orientated to the city, and that, you know, the bit you're leaving behind isn't kind of, you know, the nice bit. You want to know that everywhere's a nice bit. Everywhere's going to be friendly and enveloping, and there's going to be something to do, something to look at, and something to see. So, I think that could be you know, a great direction for the city.